I'll tell you why Jeep Cherokees are next. This is my Jeep Comanche. It's a 1989 model with the legendary 4-liter inline-six, coupled with a 5-speed manual and a 4-wheel drive. In my opinion, the holy trinity of these old Jeeps is what makes this Jeep the coolest old Jeep around. It is not my first and will not be my last. But this is the truck of the moment, and I want to tell you why. Welcome back to Daft & Classic. I make VW content, but haven't posted a video in a couple months. I thought it would be much easier to keep producing content at fire camp, but the production process slows to an absolute crawl when you're hired to be on location, working every vehicle at a moment's notice. But that's for another video. You might recall last spring I went through a minor rebuild of my bus engine to make April Fool's Ausflug, an annual VW bus cruise to the Alvord Desert. And the bus made it, of course. But in the following months, a vibration in my clutch pedal that I tried adjusting in or out of tension took its toll on my engine, and now I have to do a complete rebuild, when I pulled the engine out and found a clutch fork with a broken arm. But that will be for another video. But when the phone call came to head to Cramfire, near Madras, Oregon, I had to rely on my other vehicle, this 1989 Jeep Comanche. And it drove there. It drove home again. It drove me to the grocery store. It drove me to this beach in the Cascades.
Yeah, that's a beaver.
It drove me to the next fire camp, near Sisters. And that meant this truck was working every day transporting food and tools and materials between the camp and our station. And it drove home again. On Emigrant Fire, near Oak Ridge, Oregon, this Jeep developed a power steering leak, but it still made it home. And it went back to Kitson Ridge and back home again. A tale as old as time. Old Jeep makes it home, slightly more worn out than it left. But I have a history with these trucks. Growing up, Jeep Cherokees were everywhere. The XJ was one of the most common first cars at my high school in Oregon. After I bought and sold my Super Beetle, I bought my first Jeep Comanche from my boss for $400. It was red, it was 2-wheel drive, but it was a 5-speed, 4-liter Comanche sport truck. It had a ton of miles, the transmission was loud and worn out, and the engine's number 6 cylinder had no compression. I mean, zero. This truck ran as a 5-cylinder with a 6th rod to balance the crankshaft by the time I bought it. But that truck carried me to Los Angeles, commuted from Pasadena to the South Bay, and then from Woodland Hills to Glendale, every day. It went on shooting trips in the desert, ran around the canyons when I got into photography at the Snake. That truck refused to die until I got it back home to Salem with a busted rear axle ring gear. And I mean, I took off on a 1,000-mile road trip with a busted ring gear, and that truck made it into my parents' driveway right before it locked up. Truly, this truck did everything in its power to get me where I needed to go. And cars today, new cars just do not do that. They are built to be recycled long before they get to the condition that I bought this Jeep in. Since parking that truck, I'd wanted another one. Every time I'd see another Comanche, I'd have such an emotional desire to sell whatever I was driving and get back into one. Even almost my bus. So an opportunity knocked with a great deal on this heap of a Jeep. I jumped on it. And I drove it until its rear end seized up a couple months later. So how good of a deal it was, maybe it wasn't that great of a deal after all. But looking at the market for these old Jeeps, I'm actually not convinced I got screwed. And here's why. In the classic car market, nostalgia is the primary force behind what is popular and what is not. In the early 2000s, custom bikes were the hot, popular thing. Orange County choppers gave America a sense of nostalgia for California's bike culture. And in 2004 or 2006, spending 30 grand or 50 grand on a bike was considered going rate. But by 2012, those 50 grand bikes had become, literally in some cases, $5,000 bikes. Nostalgia for that part of the culture faded. And it just so happens that around that same time, VW bus nostalgia started driving the prices of $500 scrap piles towards $100,000 show-stopping Volkswagen transporters. Followed by, in spite of the naysayers, the second generation bay window VW bus. It also exploded in value over the following decade. Some of us even built a business out of the boom in VWs being bought, restored, and sold. But just as the tide came in, the tide has been receding on the VW bus market. The market is saturated with restored and imported buses. While they're still not everyone's idea of affordable yet, in my experience, now is the best time since the pandemic to buy a bus if you just want a weekend cruiser with the family. But prices will continue to go down, so don't buy one expecting to make a whole lot of money on it. Buy it for the nostalgia. Nothing will deliver you back to your youth like driving the car you drove as a broke teenager. But the speculative money is moving, and I think I see where it's going. Into these old Jeeps. I bought this Comanche for under $5,000. Comps for it around the Pacific Northwest were about that number, which is to say that $5,000 was a decent budget to find a Comanche that needed some love, but you could drive it home. In just 2 years, while my VW bus's value is coming down, the Jeep Comanche market has jumped to the point where that number is closer, I think, to $8,000. And that's for a Comanche, but what about its far more popular brother, the Cherokee? You can still get a decent driving $5,000 Jeep Cherokee, especially with an automatic around here. But those $5,000 rigs are the $3,000 rigs from a couple years ago. The plain old Jeep Cherokee has gone from a $500 car when I was in high school to a $5,000 project car today. Because I'm 35. And my peers are now realizing what I learned from baby boomers 15 years ago with my Volkswagen. New cars are not getting better. The EV future we were promised 20 years ago has hit a wall and totally folded out from underneath itself. Combustion vehicles are only getting bigger and blobbier, without getting better fuel mileage or providing any major utility over what cars in the 90s had. Manufacturers are now teasing feature subscription models in lieu of anything that will make your driving experience better. So what if your new car has a touchscreen monitor in the dash? I have a phone with all of the same functions that I'm already paying for. And my peers are going back to the cars of our childhood, just like Gen X, just like the boomers. Cars that we can own rather than lease or subscribe to. Cars that can still be worked on with hand tools in a home garage by a regular guy because YouTube has made the sharing of knowledge to do these projects pretty dang cheap. If you don't have the specific tools to do a particular job, you can get one delivered on Amazon cheaper than you can typically buy one normally. And that's a phenomenon that makes these old Jeeps as accessible as ever to anyone even interested in having an old tinker toy. And the best part is, again, because YouTube makes knowledge so much cheaper today than it was just a decade ago, those fiddly electrical jobs like repairing a gauge cluster for all of those microelectronics jobs that you or I may not want to do, now more than ever there's a college student down your street or around your corner who isn't the least bit intimidated by circuit boards. For the guy who doesn't want to rely on a shop to repair every little thing, these old Jeeps are at least as utilitarian as a VW bus. Maybe the Cherokee has less cargo room, but the buses didn't come with four-wheel drive and air conditioning and the ability to cruise faster than 65. My prediction is that the Jeep Cherokee and the Jeep Comanche are going to see the kind of market jump that the VW buses have had for the last 15 years. And I make that prediction based on watching the market jump just in 2 years. But for my return back to content making, I needed to tell you this story because this summer, driving this Comanche to different fires around Oregon, I lost track of the compliments from kids. The recent high school graduates, the farm boys, the college students who told me I've never seen one of those before, and who told me they want to buy a classic Jeep like that, because these kids were born after XJ production ended in 2001. Their nostalgia starts in the 2000s. These are the kids who have given me the same unsolicited kind of offers to buy my Jeep that boomers have given me for my bus. value's way over what my truck is actually worth. But that's what nostalgia is. It's the premium you pay to experience the past. And a wave is coming for that Jeep premium. This isn't even a new story, which is why I mentioned Orange County choppers. This is a pattern you can see if you pay attention. Human happiness is fickle, and nothing is ever going to hold the same economic value forever. The vast majority of VW bus owners will sell their buses for less than they're into them. And that's going to ripple through the VW bus market for the next decade. And the vast majority of Jeep Cherokee owners are already selling their XJs for more than they're into them. And that ripple is a wave coming to push the used Jeep market to fill the nostalgia hole being left open by the VW bus. At least in my opinion, this is the trend for the next decade. Tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that. Prices go up, prices go down. People become excited, and then happy, and then they are content, and then they are less than content, and then they change. If you're a car collector, buy a Cherokee before it's too late. I did. This one is going to make appearances in later videos. And if you happen to find a Comanche that you can afford, buy it now, before they become as expensive as a 23 window Samba.